Niners had some injuries. It's not going away. Jeff Wilson Jr. was the beginning, and now they got Tavarius Moore and Justice School out for a significant amount of time. We got to assess some blame. So in your opinion, who is most responsible for this never-ending string of injuries, and really for these injuries this offseason? Let's focus there. Suneil, why don't you start us off?
Ooh, I wanted Jack to start off.
Jack, why don't you start us off? And I want to plug, Jack wrote an article today for All 49ers Sports Illustrated, really tracing the history of this injury problem, and it's the most comprehensive work on the subject I've seen so far. Definitely check it out. Jack, you're up.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, as far as what's happened this year, I'd like to be able to say that it's passed. But other than Jeff Wilson Jr., the two other guys that got injured, they haven't been injured. They don't have injury histories. Justin School doesn't have any kind of an injury history in the past. And I don't think Tavarius Moore does either. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But, I think it's just an unfortunate situation for School and Moore specifically. The contract year for Moore coming up and School, I think he was going to be in a battle for his job. But more than anything, one thing I want to say is, you go back to 2011 and that was the year of a strike, not a strike, but excuse me, the lockout. The team wasn't even able to practice until preseason camp in August, and that team was among the top in the league as far as least amount of games lost due to injury. So there's definitely something going on in camp, and not seen it. The only thing I can go off of is just the competitiveness that's taking place in camp is a little higher than it needs to be at this point in time. At this point in time, they should be doing a lot of individual work, a lot of just basic repping play, of things up and playing against air on offense and defense. And if they're going to do 7-on-7 periods, that's fine. But the team periods definitely should be limited, especially since there's no uniforms. All they're out there is in shorts and shirts at the helmet. So I'm going to just go with this one. I think it's unfortunate situation and probably working a little too fast and too hard for these guys at this point in time, considering the 49ers are the only one that's really getting hit this hard.
So real quick, before I let Mav go, the question was who's responsible? So it's a great answer, but it sounds like you're saying ultimately the buck stops at Kyle on this one. Yes.
Ultimately, in this situation, because these guys don't have an injury past, it's got to come down to, it's bad luck, but if you're going to pin it on somebody, it's got to be pinned on the head coach.
Right. If it were an injury-prone veteran getting hurt, then you could definitely point to John Lynch. I see what you're saying. Maverick, what do you think?
Well, at least to me with the Achilles, from what I understand about those injuries, it's just a matter of time and those things pop and they're horrific injuries and hard to come back from. So that one's tough. But ACLs and the high ankle sprains and the foot injuries and hamstring injuries, those are some of those are preventable. At least the hamstring and high ankle sprains, I think, can be prevented. And it's weird. I don't know the correct answer. I'm sure if Kyle Shanahan knew the correct answer, he would have fixed this in 2018. But there's something wrong and they have to fix it, whether that's reevaluating the medical staff, whether that's reevaluating the warm-ups, which I'm sure, Grant, in your time at open practice, you got to see a lot of the warm-ups because that's usually what they let everyone see the most, right? So do they have to reevaluate that? Is there something going on there? There's a lot of injuries going on, and it's something I've noticed that it's not necessarily just the guys that have injury history, like Jack said. Occasionally there's the guy that comes out of nowhere, like Justin School, and he gets this quick injury, or Jeff Wilson Jr. wasn't that lifting. And so it's not even like he was running too hard, which is, I think, how he's been hurt in the past. It was just lifting and he got hurt. And so those injuries can't happen this early on, but they have happened a lot to the 49ers in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
First off, I just want to say how honored I am to be on the biggest channel in the Bay Area, Grant Cohn. All that work you've been putting in over the last few years, man.
You guys all helped me get over the top, but 32,000 subscribers, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Now let me go at your throat. No, I'm just kidding.
Bring it.
So this is like a really interesting topic, and everybody knows that follows me on this channel that I'm a huge, Shanahan stan, right? I'm a big Kyle Shanahan, especially, So there's this, I guess, like a picture or kind of like a data table that's been going around the internet you guys have probably seen, where it kind of breaks down how many games have been missed by injury over the last, I think it started in 2014 up until 2020. And it shows the 49ers are the second worst as far as least healthy team, with average of 26 games. So and this obviously has been going on since 2014, and it's been pretty consistent. And I tried to look at that chart to really see if there were teams that had a big issue and then were able to fix it, or teams that didn't have an issue and then it started being a big problem. And 30 of the 32 teams were pretty consistent. Like they were either always injured or highly injured, or they were like really, really low, except two teams. The first team was Tampa Bay. So they were really injury prone team until 2019, where the 2019-2020 years, they basically had 2 games and 1 game of injuries in that chart. And then Tennessee Titans were also an oft-injured team. And then in 2017, they started becoming much more healthy, which is also the year that Vrabel became the coach. So those are the 2 things that there was actual changes, and they coincided with regime changes. So with that being said, me being a huge Kyle Shanahan fan, I have to be honest and be like, look, this isn't a Kyle Shanahan problem, in fact, because it happened not on his watch. But you're the leader of the team.
Thank you.
And if you are seeing this issue, it's up to you to fix it. And we have a precedent with the Titans and the Tampa Bay to be able to do that. The second thing that kind of was, a little bit like, man, I wish I had something to throw Shanahan some bail. But one of the most healthy teams on that list was the Atlanta Falcons, which was a regime that he came from.
Wow.
So to see that he came from a team that was, I think they're like the second or the third least injured team in that, even the years that he was there. So to see that he isn't picking something up from the culture that was in Atlanta that kept their players so healthy, is kind of like, what are we doing here? Like, this is clearly an issue, clearly something that we've seen coaches be able to change in the past, and it isn't being done. So unfortunately, I do have to put this on Kyle Shanahan, because it's up to you as the leader of the team to be able to see, hey, this is going on. What tweaks do I need to make sure that we could get healthy? Because the number one issue on the 49ers is health. If they're healthy, they're in the Super Bowl. If they're not healthy, they're not making the playoffs. And literally, that's the only difference between winning and losing with the 49ers.
That's a surprising answer. Good answer. You guys are all pretty much in agreement that it's on Kyle. I agree too. It's on the head coach. It's on the head coach. If he doesn't figure this out, then no one's going to figure it out. But I'm going to add something to this. I was on with Eric Crocker and Will Blackman this morning. Will Blackman, 12-year vet. I never talked to him. He's brilliant. I went to Boston College. I guess I should have expected it. He's really, really smart. Something about DBs, man. DBs are really smart. Football players in general are really smart. It's a very conceptual game where you have to memorize a lot of stuff. It's not like baseball where all you have to memorize is how many outs there are. No offense to baseball players. I play baseball, but you don't have to be smart to play that game. You do have to be smart to play football. Anyway, Will Blackman made a great point. He was like, man, this is on the players. Look at who got hurt. Jeff Wilson Jr., 25. He had injury history, but Tavarius Moore, 25, no injury history. Justin School, 25, no injury history. What's going on here? These are young kids who are making that push to get a second contract, and they're working out too hard. They're from July to April when they're on their own. They're probably working out too hard, and by the time they get to the spring practices, they're cooked. They're gassed, and they haven't understood or internalized the importance of recovery, which is something that vets who've been under the knife a few times understand. So there is a personal responsibility and a professionalism here that the players need to understand. But again, if Kyle makes it a point of emphasis, maybe these players will get it. So it's ultimately up to Kyle, but hearing Will talk about it, this is kind of like a young player's mistake. And what he was saying is like, it's Instagram's fault. Because all these guys want to go on Instagram and post their workouts in February and show how hard they're working. It's like, man, you should be chilling, man, because you're going to be breaking down your body for 9 months.
But I also feel like, I saw that when you made that video, and I thought it was a great point. Yeah. But it coincides with where Shanahan is in his coaching career too. Because if you look at it, he's also in the last years of his contract trying to get over the hump. So that same intensity of trying to be a winning team, like if you look at, coaches that have won, they're probably like more calm and like just be like, okay, this is a grind and all this kind of stuff. Versus Shanahan, who's like, I got to get this monkey
out. 31 and 36. I got to win, man.
And so maybe that's why
work out harder.
Work
out harder.
He's in their ear saying that's probably the message when they're leaving. Like, we got to work hard. Next year we got to come back stronger, and maybe that's what's happening. So.
Good call. Brian Tate says, do you think Jed called Kyle and said stop practice?
That's a good point. I don't know.
I don't know. What do you think Jed would do that? That'd be bold of Jed. I don't think he's told Kyle one thing to do in the last 4 years, but I don't know.
Maybe Lynch.
I do think Lynch needs to take control to an extent. I mean, God love Kyle. He's very good at certain things, but it seems like he's demonstrated he doesn't have the answers to this problem. I mean, he sat there today like this and was like, man, it is. What do you want me to say? It's football. Like, okay, then delegate that. Let Lynch be in charge of that. B Money says, I love you, B Money. B Money for show says, what will hurt the 49ers more, the injuries or Trey Lance not getting practice experience because minicamp has been canceled?
If Trey Lance is getting hurt from not playing 2 days, would they miss 2 more days of practice?
Nah, man, it's about. I think they canceled 5 days of practice.
Oh, okay.
2 days of OTAs and 3 days of minicamp. So that's 5 practices.
I still think
it's a valid question.
I still think that losing those 2 guys, which I know we're going to touch on later, affects the whole depth of this team, not just the 2 positions they are expected to play.
Yep.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna say that Lance not getting the reps is going to hurt them more.
Yeah.
For the fact that the 2 guys that got hurt are more depth pieces than starting pieces. So, and whereas Trey Lance, we've seen it with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's right there. He's probably more than likely going to be playing at some point this season. He's going to have to be ready to play. And he's a guy who hasn't played in a year and a half, almost 2 years now. So he needs as much practice time that he can get on the field and reps with the wide receivers and coaches as he can get.
I feel like these spring practices were a bust, but the main silver lining is what Jack's talking about. At least Trey got reps at all. That's good.
Yeah, but I think there's going to be a preseason this year. There's still a full camp.
That's true.
So it's not like the same offseason as last season where there isn't that going to happen. So
this smells like a Jed intervention. Kyle wouldn't do this autonomously. Good for Jed if this is true, because this injury thing is out of control. Well, I think a lot of fans are kind of feeling like this is out of character for Kyle. Maybe it is. And if Jed stepped in and was like, Kyle, you got to do something wrong, and then Kyle said, okay, well, then let's just shut it down entirely, that would be kind of an interesting response. And I think that leads me into my next topic.